I could do that all day. Just sit and smile. Okay. Thank you for your great response on the last video. I think it's important, and I'm going to continue just a little bit on that and a little bit of a variation on AI, the dangers of it, how it applies to what I think the book of Revelation, chapter 13, John's Revelation. It's pretty incredible. And to see the danger, and some of the comments were so fascinating. There was one where I guess a certain lady posted this, or I'm guessing that's how we found out that did a whole sacrament talk based on what AI told her. Now this will get into some other things. I don't know why, things work the way they do in here, but a little bit of an observation from a 65-year-old follically challenged, slightly overweight, just slightly. I think this summer will bode well for me getting back into tip-top shape. Let's just say I wintered well, but not too bad, but you know what I'm saying. It's interesting as I look back in my church life. I would dare say that a lot of the general authorities and or officers of the church were a little bit bigger. Maybe not taller, but bigger in another way. We have to be so careful. I'll probably lose some followers on this one, and I don't mean to, but it's just observation. And in most recent years with President Monson, I would dare say a lot more leaders, general leaders, let's just say general leaders, were a little bit bigger than they are now, with a retired heart surgeon who is at the helm, and our prophet and our leader who's very conscious of weight and fitness, right? 98, 99 years old soon. Amazing. So then we have this it's just so interesting. If you listen to YouTube or Rumble or any of these things, particularly YouTube, you'll have these commercials that come up, and it's all based on, a lot of it is anyway based on algorithms and whatnot, but sometimes it's just based on who's going to pay the most to get their product out there, and a lot of it has to do with the aging process. Reversing that, and also youthfulness, being youthful, and being fit. And I got thinking about this along with AI, and really this is the world's way of resurrection, isn't it? Some magic potion or magic pill that makes you youthful. Now, I know that I talk about a product here on the station, on the station, on this channel, and the health benefits and everything else. I do it, and I believe it's real, right? The more and more we get inundated with this, and usually we'll see somebody that might have been like this, and then now they're like this, and they're like this, they're chiseled and ripped and have a nice waist and broad shoulders, and basically what I'm not. And we go, wow, if I take that, I'm going to look like that. Or if I do that, I'm going to look like that. And why do we want to look like that? In a sense, it's a form of artificial resurrection. we're to maintain our health so that we can be as productive, be an asset to the team, right? As much as possible. But that's not always, that physically, that doesn't always happen in this earth life. We've been going through it, right? With loved ones, people we know, ourselves, whatever it may be. We know that this human experience is a very fragile one. And one minute we could be on top of the world, we're the best, the toughest, the strongest, the most agile, the leanest, and then just like that, something can happen and change everything. And that's part of the human experience, I think. But this idea that we can recreate our youth is really a form of trying to resurrect ourselves, trying to rejuvenate. And the more corrupt this gets, the more you get into these weird situations, evil, downright evil, where people are doing satanic things. And for what? To regenerate youthfulness in their own being. And I'm not going to get into the gory details, but most of you know those gory details. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And so, as you see these advertising and see what they are doing, just have it open your eyes a little bit in your mind and your heart, and you'll. And most of you already know this, right? Especially in this group, but just see what they're selling. They're selling the artificial resurrection. Christ is who we look to for the real resurrection, the real, not the artificial. Artificial intelligence. It's the best descriptive term, I guess, or name for what it is. It's artificial. It's fake. And so just think about that. Now, we do a lot of things. We have liposuction. We have Botox injections. We have augmentations of all kinds. That what are they to produce? A more youthful, healthy look, right? It's a form of resurrection. I've said this a lot, but if you live in Utah, just head on I-15 and drive south. Say from Salt Lake to like downtown Salt Lake, get on I-15 and head south. The further south you get, maybe towards a town called Draper, you'll see a lot of billboards of these services provided to perform artificial resurrection. It's pretty funny. Now back to the church leadership and the things that have changed. This is really these are kind of rhetorical questions because I don't really have answers, but it is kind of interesting that the world concept of youth, beauty, prime of your life is a slender, muscular, build, right? And the commercials, the advertising, if they want to sell something, they typically, except for Bud Light, will typically have a very, attractive woman or an attractive guy. Not that guys are attractive, but you know what I'm saying. They're usually in good, they're fit and they're younger, they're youthful. That will sell the product. That's been happening for forever, right? We all see that. That's a pretty obvious one. But how has the world let me just say the United States. How has the United States followed that? This is really interesting. Unfortunately, the website I found only went to 2014, so we're way off in years. But from 1976 to 2014, listen to this. Men, their average weight in 1976 of an adult male, 172.2 pounds. 172 pounds. A woman, an adult woman in 1976, 144 pounds. Now, okay, so we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about religion, and we don't talk about weight. I'm going to do all three. Oh, you know, it's been nice knowing many of you. I really appreciate you supporting the channel, and I understand why you're probably going to leave now. In 2014, which is the latest I could find the data. So let me just so it's 1976, men at 172, women at 144. That's the average adult. 2014, men at 195 average, almost 196. Let's just say 196, and women at 168. So it's interesting that in 2014, I suspect that's gone up. So even though the world advertises slim, trim, fit, the population is going the other direction. Isn't that interesting? And we have the same example within the church leadership, in my opinion. We have a slimmer, trimmer. I mean, I'll just say it. So some of the general officer women and or wives of men church leaders, man, they just look emaciated. They're just these little rails, you know. Whereas, just from my observation, I would say years ago, they were a little bit huskier. They were husky. One time, Caitlin that's our daughter that's in Texas. And, you know, you're just going to get in trouble when you say certain things. But I think she was the only one with us. Joseph, our youngest, was probably on his mission. Caitlin was home. Anyway, I needed to move something, and I can't remember. And Sue and Caitlin were there, and somebody asked, "Oh, do you need any help?" You know, and I said, "No, I have my two husky gals here that can help me." Anyway, it's a big joke now, and that was so many years ago, but still, you know, it's like, yeah, he called me a husky gal. Anyway, okay, so this interesting thing is now the leadership of the church, and I'm saying for the most part, right? There's always some exceptions, but for the most part, they're thin, they're youthful looking. Even a 99-year-old, 98-year-old, for that age, you know, just it really is interesting. And some have lost a lot of weight. They look, you know, they look fit and younger, which is really what the world puts forth. But did you know in Utah, the LDS, the LDS, I know I'm not supposed to say LDS anymore. The saints have, on average, and you can look this up, are about 10 pounds heavier than their counterpart of adults that live in Utah that aren't members of the church. About 10 pounds heavier average. So even though the leadership is this, the members are getting bigger and bigger. and so then we get into this topic of following the prophet. And there's a couple of interesting things. There's some other YouTubers out there that are associated with the Latter-day Saints, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're not officials, but they're like this channel, mostly appealing to members of the church. And they'll say, you Palmer aren't following the prophet, because mostly it had to do with the jab kind of thing and talking about that. And yet, these individuals, there's usually three of them that appear together. They all have beards. Now, this is an interesting thing. And we'll talk about the difference between, how I approach the jab versus them having beards. And because this gets into the crushing the water bottle and following the prophet and the brazen serpent, looking at the brazen serpent and all that. And we'll get into this. Because I think there is a difference, and I'm just going to, ask some more rhetorical questions. So you have, you now in and of itself, a beard. I don't even really notice it. I've talked about that. But how many general authorities have beards? Wow, that got quiet. 0. Now, when it's follow the brethren, follow the prophet, follow the leaders. Okay, so what are we doing actually? What are we doing? Could you ever imagine in a conference? There's nothing in policy. There's nothing. They're in for missionaries, and I guess technically you could say a general authority is a missionary. So that's how you do it. But what about the Sunday school president, or in him? But then could you imagine a guy with standing at the pulpit at a conference with a beard and with a light blue shirt? So there's some unwritten things. I put this in the crushing the water bottle category that really don't define. Now, I know I'm jumping all over, but hopefully I'll bring this together. I went online, and I just got this definition. What's the difference between copying and following? And I came up with this guy. It's Kedar Nimkar. Kedar Nimkar. He wrote something that popped up here, and it's really, really interesting. And he said, here's the short answer: the difference between copying and following. And he says, copying is imitating an action. Okay? Following is imitating the principle behind the action. This is so interesting to me, and I don't know exactly how I, started thinking all this, but here's the longer answer that this guy gave, and I think he's onto something here. The long answer is, copy is an act of copying the result. Follow is an act of knowing the process through which the result was achieved and then copying the process. So he says in English, the word copy and follow are used interchangeably, and thereby diluting the entire meaning of the words. And so I'm not going to read all the other thing. It's pretty short, but I'm not going to read it. But anyway, we might think maybe to change the song that the primary children sing, follow the prophet, to copy the prophet, because what we're doing sometimes is just doing like what the children of Israel were asked to do. Look at the serpent. Don't think about anything. Don't do anything. Just look at the serpent. Now, if they were, that's copying. This is my opinion, okay? My opinion. But if you, so you're just copying or imitating, which this does kind of get into AI a little bit, but if you're copying or imitating, you're just, what did that say? It says, you're imitating the action, right? But if you're actually following, you know the process of why. So if we study the scriptures about, say, the brazen serpent, we'll know why Moses, what that was all about. It was a representation of Christ being raised up on the cross, really, and looking at that and knowing that's my Messiah and that's who I'm going to believe in and that's who's going to save me. That would be following Moses in a sense, but the children of Israel were at a point where it was just like copy. I think much of what we do when we say follow the prophet is really what we're saying is copy the prophet. Copy the prophet. Because what we're doing is we're saying, Prophet Nilsson, President Nilsson, you go to the mountain, you do the work, you do what it takes to see God, to see Jehovah. You do what it takes. And then you come and tell us, and then we'll copy you. And I don't think that's where we want to be. We want to be followers of Christ through his chosen servants. By following, you understand the process, you learn it, and then you do the result, or you do the what's the word? I'm sorry. Let's see, is an act of knowing the process. So you learn the process. So you learn the process of what you learn what Moses had to do in order to see God face to face, to see Jehovah, right? And then you see the process of why he would do a brazen serpent or these other things, instead of just going, well, he did it, so I'm going to copy what he has said without knowing the process. So when we copy things, we don't own it. And this ties into this AI stuff. If you have AI write you a really, really nice sacrament meeting talk, people will say, wow, that was awesome. Great job. Really interesting. Good stuff. Did the person who gave the talk own it? Were they actually following what they had learned, what they had studied, what they felt the Holy Spirit testified to them? Probably not. So this talk about crushing the water bottle and then it just spreads like wildfire. When we so in other words, or even, okay, so if we talk about the jab, let's say, and there's an urging. Well, if you're copying, you would see a photo published in the church newsroom of all the general authorities, particularly the prophet, getting a jab. And so you copy that and you get it. You don't study it out. You don't think about it. You don't go, gosh, I wonder, what's this made of? What's going on here? You just do it. That would be copying. Okay. Now, I'm not saying all copy is bad. I'm just saying that's what it appears to be. And I think there's this distinct difference between copying and following. Quite often, remember there's a conference talk, and I think it was President Kimball that he was watching some young men on the front row at a meeting, and he was at, and there's 2 or 3 of them there, and they would all cross their legs at the same time, this way, and then they'd go this way, and then they'd put their hand like this, and he realized they were imitating or copying him. And the talk was about that. It was pretty interesting. And I think, I can't remember the context of it, but it was similar to the crushing of the water bottle talk, where was it Elder Haney? I can't remember, that gave that talk this last conference. But there's this idea of just doing exactly what you see without knowing or studying out or owning it. So back to some of these other things like beards, no beards. If we should follow and copy, or copy, or do both, then we shouldn't be throwing stones. We're living in glass houses, and we shouldn't be throwing stones at people that chose not to do, the jab necessarily, and say, you're not following. If we're a little bit husky, there's no mention of it. You go to the temple, people have recommends, they see it, but you don't see too many in leadership positions that are that way. So are you following? Are you copying? What are you doing there? A white shirt, if you're a leader, are these, what are these things? And then you work it out, you study it out, you figure it out, and then you decide if that's what you're going to do. And when you do, you own it. Now, I personally like white shirts. I like them. That's never been an issue for me. I really don't have a very good beard, so that's never been an issue for me. I just as soon shave and do that. The weight issue is something that is personal for me. I want to be in good shape, and there's really strong evidence that if you're overweight, it's not good. It's not good for joints, heart, you name it, diabetes, all the things that go. And we know the things that are causing it, refined sugars and bleached out this and just all the crap that we get. And it's typically for convenience and fast and the addictiveness of the sugars and all those things. And so even though we're looking at this, we're doing this. But the one, kind of dichotomy, or the thing that's kind of interesting to me, is how the world perception of fit and everything is really the similar to what our leadership is, and that's thin and fit for the most part. Now, they're not, wearing clothing that shows everything like you see in the commercials. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the world is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm talking about the population, and especially in the United States, where what we see for youthfulness is thinner and thinner. And what in the church, our leaders this is just my observation, are more fit and thinner. And yet the church population is bigger and bigger. Yeah. So, I don't know, you tell me. In those cases, we're not either following and we're not copying, right? And then individuals that have facial hair, and really point their fingers at other people and how they live and what they're doing, how can you say that? Personally, I could care less about facial hair. I don't even notice when my boys have beards. I don't even, it's like, I don't, it doesn't even register, one way or another. But it's one of those things that you have to talk about in the church, because you'll watch conference and not one of them. And really, what's the meaning behind it? I don't know. I can't answer that. I think it came from the military and from how missions were really designed post World War II to just be this certain type of look. Almost a military look, and then that's just kept going. President McKay was the last prophet, other than Joseph Smith or Latter-day Prophets. All the ones after Joseph Smith to David O. McKay had a beard, and why we would think that now and for all these years. That's something, but it is. There's something there. I don't know, but you're not gonna. Okay, let me ask you this question: if, even though it's not in the handbook, even though it's scripturally based, you couldn't find anything. In fact, you'd probably find just the opposite. Facial hair on a general authority, would they get released if they just said, you know what, I'm growing this thing out. I've got a good thick beard. I want to look like Duck Dynasty within a year. What would happen? What would happen? So I know there's been things with temple workers or that go now. If you're a patron and you go to the temple, I think they're pretty well told, don't ask, don't do anything. Just let them, whatever they look like. If they're tatted, pierced, long hair, beards, they're welcome. But if you're working here, I can't remember if there's a certain standard for all temples throughout the world, or just if each temple president has their own thing. Some of you might know that. Where there's a specific restriction for a specific assignment, like a missionary. But President McKay was a prophet when I was a young man, and so he's the one I knew, and he didn't have a beard. So, and none of them did after that. So that's all I grew up with. I didn't really know. Where my father, Heber J. Grant, was the prophet for many years, probably the longest running prophet maybe, and he had a beard. So you see, so is it some like Wall Street guys, top executive, really corrupt people, some real corrupt people, they wear really nice suits and white shirts and their hair is perfect. They almost look like they could be, missionary type people, but there's a darkness inside them, and they, so the world image is very similar. In fact, like I said, when I went to Canada on my mission in the 70s, there were some who thought we were FBI, and we were there to get draft dodgers that left. A lot of them, particularly in certain areas, they thought we were FBI. So that's the image that I think was wanted and still wanted. So a lot of interesting questions, a lot of things. I didn't really tie anything together on this. I apologize for that. But I think just raising some questions, the difference between copying and following, I think it's huge. And I think much of what we do is really what we're saying is copy the prophet versus follow. Because following is having an understanding of, it's the why. It's the why. And another definition I saw where copy is a verb, or excuse me, copy is a noun, copying is a noun, and follow is a verb. So that was another way of looking at it. So that's it for this video. Thank you again for everything. Little Jane's doing great. Just getting better and better by the day, by the hour, really. And we're really hoping that maybe sometime this week she'll be able to come home after at least a month, maybe. Yeah, a month in the hospital. So, okay. Thank you. God bless. Love you all. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.